Hey, I'm back. So, I wanted to get into this little theory that I came up with. Again, just by watching the documentaries, listening a lot, rewinding, really paying attention to like little certain things that were said. So, this is my theory of what happened on December 26, 1996. I do believe that Jonbenet Carr possibly is telling the truth about his involvement with Jonbenet Ramsey. Now, I know that when he was extradited from Thailand and brought back to the United States, that they kept him, interviewed him, and ultimately did a DNA test that, unfortunately, he was not a match. But there is new evidence that is coming to light, and different people are talking about the DNA, how possibly it could have been tampered with, or maybe they got different mixes of the DNA, and at that time when he was brought back, which is 2006, that maybe therefore they didn't have the advancement of the DNA that they do now with genealogy and, every year DNA gets better and better and better. But maybe back then, the DNA that they found was inconclusive with his DNA. Now, I know a lot of people say DNA does not lie. I have heard several podcasts and true crime buffs and experts and things on YouTube saying that DNA does not lie. Now, again, I can't explain the DNA theory, but the details in this are just so... What he says in that recording tape to the professor in Boulder just gave me chills down my back, because these details, yeah, he could be a lunatic and crazy and just making all this shit up, but this is what I got out of it, and this is, just my theory, my opinion, how it all matches up, again, except for the DNA. So, this is what I believe happened that night, December 26, 1996. I do believe when John and Patsy and the kids were away Christmas night at their friends, the Whites, having dinner, I do believe that Jonbenet Carr got in, as Lou Smith says, through that grate, through that basement broken window. He was small enough, he was short enough. I believe that he had already kind of watched the house from time to time. He was a teacher for little kids. So I do believe that somewhere along the line, he did once live in Atlanta, and the Ramseys are from Atlanta. I do believe maybe he could have been a substitute teacher, or he could have shown up at one of her pageants, or somehow, some way, he became fascinated with this little girl. Maybe, again, as a substitute teacher at one of her schools, or met her at a pageant because, he's a pedophile and he loves little girls, that he just showed up and just, again, became fascinated with her and maybe started stalking the Ramseys. Maybe started watching the house when they were coming to and from. Maybe he walked around the house looking for entry points. That he had this plan all along. Now, in the docuseries on those recorded tapes, he did say in that confession that he planned to take her all along. So I do believe that he was going to kidnap her and keep her for himself, or keep her long enough to do whatever he wanted to do to her, and then somehow place her back with the parents not knowing. But this is what I believe. He said he got into the home. There is a statement where he said he got into the home while they were gone at that Christmas party. He had 5 hours or so. He said that the Ramseys left at 5 p.m. and didn't return until approximately 10 p.m. or so. I believe in that 5 hours or so of time, he had time to look around. He had time to write that ransom note, which they say took about, anywhere from 15 to 21 minutes to write that ransom note. I believe that he found the pad. He found the pen. Of course, everything's right there in the house. I believe that he was looking around and snooping through John's office, different bills that came in. He had 5 hours to explore the house, find out whose room was whose. He knew of the little rooms in the basement because he came through that way. I believe he wrote that ransom note. I believe that he found something of John Ramsey's paycheck stub, which he later said that amount of $118,000 was written on paycheck stubs through the course of the year because that was his Christmas bonus. But it was printed on his paycheck stub where the intruder could have saw that, picked it up and thought, 118,000. Now, he was a teacher. John Mark Carr was a teacher. So he was very educated. I'm sure the way he speaks in interviews and things like that, you could tell like he has a big imagination. You can kind of tell that he is educated. So writing that ransom, the big words that he used, and he's lived everywhere in different countries. So he's going to pick up little words like attaché and foreign fraction. He's going to pick up, different like terms because he's lived all over. And again, he's a teacher and well educated. I do believe that writing this ransom note, he saw the 118,000, put that in the note because it was just a number that was, that he saw, and he was like, oh, I'm going to put 118,000 because ultimately he didn't really want the money. He wanted her. Also, I believe he did come in with a flashlight. I do believe he came in with the rope that was also found left in a spare bedroom upstairs across from her room. But I believe that, he found the other stuff in the Ramsey house, easy access. Oh, I know how to do this. I'll just use it. He was very, very demented, but from the interviews again that I saw of him speaking and just his body language and everything, you could tell that he's smart. I think he got some of those references that he said in the ransom note from movies. I recently rewatched that movie, The Ransom. It came out in November of 96, so a month before the murders happened. He could have watched that and remembered specific details and added that into the letter to make it more, dramatized, because he had to say something, and, he had all that time lying in wait for the Ramseys to come back home to write that letter. So he had all the imaginative ideas floating through his head. So, again, I believe he snooped for a while, saw John's paycheck stubs. He was small enough to fit through that window. And I believe, he's little and he's short. So I do believe when he was trying to exit out, he needed Lou Smith's theory about the suitcase being in front of the window so he could get out. He was a short man. If you look at him, he's really small. He would need that suitcase to stand on. Again, I believed he walked every inch of that house. He definitely wore gloves, whether like doctor's gloves or he wore, like mechanic gloves or something like that. He was not stupid. He was going to put gloves on and no matter whatever he touched. What is kind of weird to me is if you're trying to tie something with gloves on, I've tried to tie my shoes with a pair of gloves, and making small knots and, different kinds of things would be kind of difficult with gloves on. So I still wonder, did he take the gloves off? Could there be his fingerprints or DNA on the rope that was tied that maybe wasn't tested correctly for his DNA? That part I don't know, but it's kind of, to have gloves on, it's to make those weird knots in the whole garrote thing is very odd and weird to do with gloves. But I do believe he was wearing gloves the entire time. I believe that the tea made, the glass of tea that was left on the table next to the bowl of pineapple, I think he also did that and got himself a drink in that 5 hours that the Ramseys were gone. Of course he's going to get thirsty. I believe he even maybe used something to wipe the glass. He had gloves on, again, so his fingerprints aren't going to touch the glass. And the last fingerprints or DNA on that glass and spoon and bowl of the pineapple was from Burke and Patsy Ramsey, because they lived in the house. I'm sure that he could even grabbed a dirty dish that was possibly in the sink with their prior fingerprints on it. He had gloves, so nothing contaminated that bowl and spoon and glass of tea left on the table. I believe he hid until they came home and that he knew for sure that they were asleep. I believe he snuck into her room, grabbed her, blankets and all. Maybe he stun-gunned her, Lou Smith's theory of her being stun-gunned. I do believe maybe he stun-gunned her either on the face or on the back while she was still in bed, and kind of just wrapped her up in fear of her not, screaming or yelling. Then I have another theory that maybe because, again, he was a teacher, somehow along the way, before all this happened, he knew and met Jonbenet. Maybe he whispered to her, hey, I'm going to come visit you Christmas night, because she did say Santa was coming to visit her, but maybe he said, I have a gift for you. I'm going to come visit you Christmas night, and it's just going to be our special little secret. And maybe that's how he woke her up and say, hey, Jonbenet, it's me. Do you remember? It's John or whatever, Mark Carr. I'm taking you down and I'm going to give you your special surprise now. Maybe he whispered to her and that's why she didn't scream or anything. And he just kind of lifted her up with the blankets and all and carried her downstairs. Told her to be quiet, that it was their little secret. Carried her down to the kitchen. Maybe he fed her a little bit of the pineapple that was already in the bowl that he made prior when the Ramseys were out, as kind of like a way to get her to trust him. Like, here, honey, let me give you a little snack. Here, would you like some? This is your favorite snack. Pineapple with some milk in it, do you want a couple pieces? Maybe gave her a couple pieces, she ate it, so she could feel, oh, he's giving me food, I trust him, there's no reason to scream or, yell for my parents or anything. And plus, she's 6 years old, she's probably super trusting anyway of people. I know when I was 6 years old, I was sexually assaulted, walking home from school, terrified out of my mind, but not really knowing, who's this strange man. He's talking to me and, asking me questions and things like that. A 6-year-old's not going to be like immediately, oh, I'm in danger, scream, I need help. I mean, this person was in her home, for God's sakes. So she's, I don't know, she's not going to have as much fear, I think, coming from somebody that this actually happened to at age 6 in real life. So he gives her a little bit of pineapple to trust her. Now he says, I'm going to take you down to the basement. I have a little surprise for you down there. I believe that he took her downstairs. He maybe again, or this is where he did stun gun her to make her go out for a minute. So he had time to make the garrote.